Shabbat Shalom. I wonder how many of you, like me, have been totally captivated over the last week by the Queen and her passing. Maybe many of you were captivated by the Queen long before that, but in the last week, I kind of realized that there was a Queen in England. And it's been fascinating to learn more about her, to read more about her, to watch videos. Elizabeth was a human being. She was a human being. She had incredible strengths, and she certainly had weaknesses as well. It was probably tough to be Elizabeth's son. It was probably tough to be Elizabeth's daughter-in-law. It was certainly tough to be Elizabeth's grandchildren. But at the same time, she had an incredible ability to bring people together. What she did for the United Kingdom in the face coming out of colonialism was actually pretty amazing. She created a network of healing and community of partnership that for Elizabeth as a politician, if you will, what she accomplished was really quite remarkable. As far as Elizabeth and the Jews, it's a little bit more of a mixed story. On one hand, I heard that she visited something like 180 countries. 180 countries. The one that somehow never made it onto her itinerary, Israel. She visited 180 countries but never went to Israel. Yet on the other hand, she had an amazing relationship with the Jews of her commonwealth. And the story is told, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs actually really focused on this. The Queen, of course, known for being on time and prompt, stood around with Holocaust survivors and listened to each of their stories well beyond what she had scheduled because she genuinely cared and wanted to hear their stories. That's Elizabeth, the human being. But we know that the Queen symbolized something different. And that, to me, more than anything, has been fascinating to read about how she, as a symbol, inspired more than just her own people, but the world. Her dignity, her grace, her wisdom, her quiet, her respectability was something that inspired our world, most likely because we are so profoundly lacking in those things. If I could name some of the things we in America are lacking, especially among our leadership: respect, dignity, quiet, a sense of real purpose and unity, and a desire to bring people together. And in so many ways, that is what the Queen represented. And I might go so far as to say the best part about the Queen is that when people were in her presence, they were their best selves. I'll say it again. When people were in the Queen's presence, she brought out the best in them. They were their best selves. Now, we Jews were not so into monarchy. As early as the Torah and the book of Deuteronomy, God warns us against kings and queens because ultimately they're often in it for themselves and their own gain, their own power. And so as we come to see throughout Jewish history, monarchy was very rarely the symbol that brought us together. And in our Torah portion this week, we're told that when we enter the Promised Land, Parashat Tavo says, when we enter the Promised Land, we're supposed to set up pillars on either side of the road into town, the road into the country, and actually says in Deuteronomy, and you're supposed to write the Torah on these pillars. Now, the rabbis ask an interesting question. Was it the entire Torah that we were supposed to write on these pillars? You can imagine that would be a lot of pillars. Was it just the book of Deuteronomy? What was it that was written on these pillars? And I might ask a related question, but not the same question. Why was it so important to write on these pillars as people entered Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel? And I think because at the end of the day, we need symbols to remind us who to be and how to live. The power of symbols was not lost on the architects who designed this amazing sanctuary. If you look, we of course have the beautiful Ner Tamid. The Ner Tamid in and of itself is a symbol of God's eternal presence. And in our synagogue, the Ner Tamid is designed to look like a burning bush, that intimate encounter between God and an individual. We're supposed to remember that each of us has an individual relationship with God, and that's symbolized by the Ner Tamid as a burning bush. But of course, if you zoom out, if you will, and you see the triangle inside the stained glass, that symbolizes Har Sinai. That symbolizes Mount Sinai. And just as the burning bush symbolizes that individual relationship with God, Mount Sinai represents our collective relationship with God. As a people, we have a relationship with God. And of course, in the Torah, it says, when the Torah was given on Mount Sinai, the mountain was awash in thunder and lightning. The mountain was awash in thunder and lightning. The stained glass symbolizes Mount Sinai being awash in thunder and lightning. Symbolism is powerful. We have, of course, the Ten Commandments above the Aron HaKodesh. From what I understand, those were a later addition to the sanctuary, and they remind us of the commandments to which we are bound. Also, in a profoundly mid-20th century statement, we have flags on either side of our bima, representing our dual commitment to the United States of America and to the State of Israel. And the flag of Israel itself is even a huge symbol. It's a symbol of what gives us power and strength. The star in the middle of the flag of Israel is, of course, a Magen David, right? The shield of David, reminding us that strength keeps us safe. But not just strength, because you notice, of course, the blue stripes on the white flag, supposed to remind us, be a symbol of the talit, of the prayer shawl. And that strength doesn't only come from weapons, but it also comes from our spirit. Symbols matter. Now, Bill Berman of blessed memory told me that as they were constructing this beautiful sanctuary, Rabbi Adler of blessed memory said, Bill, the entire congregation is going to be looking at this gorgeous stained glass. And Rabbi Adler said to Bill, "No, what do I get?" So for Rabbi Adler, Bill Berman put in the burning bush just beyond us. You may not always pay attention to it, but just back there. That's Rabbi Adler's burning bush. For me, as a rabbi in this bima, as a rabbi who has the honor of serving this congregation, it's a symbol that I always have to do a little bit better, that I have to remember the power that Rabbi Adler possessed in his caring and his words. And I aspire to that, just as I aspire to fill Rabbi Groner's legacy, Rabbi Groner of blessed memory. Symbols matter. Symbols are powerful. In just over a week time, we're going to have, of course, Rosh Hashanah. And I'm sure you, like us and our family, have powerful symbols around your house and at your table. Perhaps a loved one's tallis, perhaps a loved one's recipe or dish in which you cooked. And of course, we know that symbols are built into Rosh Hashanah itself. We eat apples and honey to represent sweetness. Some people eat the head of a fish because we're supposed to be the head and not the tail. Anybody have fish head at their table on Rosh Hashanah? Right? Rebecca, of course, being brilliant and creative, knows that fish head would not go over particularly well at our table. So we put out Swedish fish, representing the same thing. Symbols matter. Everyone's now talking about what symbols they have in their home. It's good, right? Symbols matter. Symbols are meant to bring out the best in us. And so Rosh Hashanah is all about symbolism. Because while we as Jews, we don't have a human king or queen, we have the King of Kings and the Queen of Queens. And every year on Rosh Hashanah, we perform a tremendous recoronation of our sovereign. Horns are sounded. We're dressed in our finest clothing. Incredible music is played. And we proclaim God, once again, to be our sovereign. Rosh Hashanah and the pageantry of Rosh Hashanah is all about symbols and reminding us to be the best that we can be, to bring out the best in each one of us. So we are now approaching the last week of 5782 and the new year 5783. Allow me to challenge you to say, what symbols do you need to find to bring out the best you that you can be? Maybe it's that loved one's tallis, maybe it's that loved one's recipe or special dish. Maybe it's the power and beauty, the magnificence of this sanctuary, or the beautiful service of Rosh Hashanah. At the end of the day, though, all of those are symbols so that you can be the best you can be in service to God and in care for our fellow man. This Shabbat, as we approach the last week of Elul, may we be wise enough and strong enough to use the symbols around us and within us so that we can truly stand before God on that recoronation day and say to God, yes, I'm striving to be the best me that I can be. I'm trying to serve you as best as I can, and I'm trying to care for my fellow Jews and the world to the utmost of my ability. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be our will, and let us say together, Amen, and Shabbat Shalom.